The rhythm of life. How about we talk about that for a minute? The rhythm of life. Synchronicity. Consequence. How is it that no matter how far we go, we keep running into people we know? Hell, I'm part of the 6 Degrees to Kevin Bacon movement. I was in Flubber. Somebody did it for me once. Went over, tuk 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 tuk. Hell, I got a friend that did it. Turns out she's got 1 degree to Long Dong Silver. What are the odds? Hell, I doubt she even knew who Long Dong Silver was. But I saw his picture in the Sex Museum in Amsterdam. That's the only reason I even know what he looks like. I don't know, but his face rings a bell. In England, they call it the bell end. Yeah, that's the joke. Oh, now I gotta explain them all. No, but really, is it synchronicity? Like, I was in the army, became friends with Scamp enough that we went to Scamp's house for like Memorial Day or something. And while we were there, we went to visit a friend of his. He was out in a trailer in the middle of nowhere, and hanging out, drinking beers, and the guy had porn. He had a porno. So we watched Edward Penis Hands and drank beer and laughed. And, oh, poor Edward Penis Hands. I hate to tell you this, but he ends up getting hooked on coke, and his bread and butter melts away. Ruined it. Spoiler alert. Just like Dirk Diggler. So I meet this guy the one time in my life, and he's just out there in a trailer in Indiana. And we go back, and then I'm in Puerto Rico, evaluating their National Guard on a 2-week stint right before the war, my war. And when it's time to leave, I'm over there, I'm hosing down the Humvee because it's got to travel across the border, even though it's somehow a state-owned thing, I don't know. And at the motor pool, and I hear, Judas? And I said, how often does this happen to me? I turn around and I'm like, who knows me? It bothers me to be someplace strange and people knowing me. I always thought I had a forgettable face. Turns out to be that guy from the trailer watching Edward Penis Hands was motivated to join the military after he met with us that weekend. And he joined the army. And he happened to be in Puerto Rico, Camp Buchanan, I think it was, in Puerto Rico. And just stand there. And I was like, It's always unnerving when I first hear my name said in a strange place, but it's not really that surprising. It happens more than you'd think. I knew that was going to go out. So there's one. And I'm just going to share a couple before I get to the point. That's one. Next one that stands out. I'm on Kodiak Island in Alaska with D-Day when we fished the halibut in '93. And we didn't make any money on that boat. But the one day, as we're living in a homeless shelter, we said, we're going to sleep outside tonight because you're not supposed to reek like booze when you go in. And so we slept in the shrubs. But we went to the bar, went to this place, and I think it was called Tony's. And we're sitting in there, got our beer, sat down, got our beer, and the barmaid, she very quickly, she said, "Are you from Michigan?" I said, "Yeah." "How did you know?" She said, "I recognized your accent." I said, "Whoa. Where are you from?" And she says, "I'm from Wolverine," which is like 10, 15 miles away from, and I said, "I'm from Gaylord." And I was like, ha, that was a pretty neat coincidence in itself, you'd think. But that coincidence is quickly becoming synchronicity because she says, "There's a guy that comes in here from Gaylord all the time." I said, "Well, that's odd." And she says, the door opens and she says, "There he is now." And she says, "Mike." And this guy's, "Yeah." And she said, "This guy's from Gaylord." And he's like, "Wow." And he comes over, he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Meeting him. And I said, "J.R. Childquist, nice to meet you, Judas." And he says, "You're my cousin." And right then D-Day goes, he slapped his head loud enough to hear. And he said, "That's it, I've had enough." And he walked out of the bar. He didn't leave, but he just had to get the fuck out of the situation because he's seen this happen enough times. Told you it happens all the time. He's seen it happen enough times that it just finally freaked him out. He said, "I'm your cousin, you know?" And I said, "Who are you?" And he's Domkowski. He happened to be up there. He was from downstate. He's part of my father's relative family. And from the old people, way back into the great-grandparents, Judja and Busha. And he used to go up to Gaylord down to my cousins at the end of the road because our property, we blocked the northern border from the Gaylord slug development program that's just eating alive everything east, west, and south. And it just turns into skeletons of buildings when they fail and it collapses. All they're doing is removing our landmarks. The old stone house that used to be on the corner by my house that my great-grandfather Squirts had dug out with a shovel. The way I understand it, that might not be right. Dug the basement of that old stone house with a shovel, and then they just took what should have been a historical monument because it was over 100 years old or something, and they raised it and put an auto advanced parts or something store on it. But yeah, he used to go up there just a mile down the road, and I used to hang out down there too with the cousins, swinging in the barn. And he says, "Yeah, that's who he is. He's my cousin." And so it doesn't affect me so much because it happens so often. But sometimes you gotta question, why is it that the further you go, the more you run into people you know? It never really crosses my mind much, but I have to now. I have to question this right now because of what's happening. After I got back from Desert Storm and everything, and I took a terminal leave 30 days and a MAC flight, and I went to Europe and I traveled around there because I figured I'd never do it again, and I had money in my pocket from the Saddam Hussein savings plan. Hell, if they paid criminals while they were in prison the whole time I were there, and they didn't allow them to smoke or drink because I didn't smoke and drink, and then they let them out, and I had $8,000 sitting in the bank, I might as well go to Europe. You'd see more criminal Americans, United States citizen criminals, roving around Europe if that was the case. Because it's like, might as well spend some money. I might never end up there, and I've been there several times since, but work, learning, imprisonment, call being held in custody without an opportunity to leave. Yeah, you wouldn't even be able to see women traveling alone on trains in Europe anymore if it were for paying criminals while they're in prison, because they'd go over there and they'd be raping all the lonely women, a lone woman. But here it is. After I got back, I went to Europe. Then I went out to California because I'd never been there. I did that at the last part of the trip. And then I went back and ended up back in Gaylord. That's where I was going. When I got there, my mom says, "Where have you been? They've been calling you." I'm like, "Who's calling me?" "They want you to be in the Alpenfest parade." Told you I'm always in parades. And I was there, I didn't have a haircut. You know, I was, poof, my beret hardly even fit anymore. And I'm like, well, okay. So that was a few days away. And so my dad got to be in the parade. They wanted my dad in it too. And they took me and my dad and they put us in a convertible and we sat in the back of the car, and I'm just like, and I watched Randy Johnston up in front of us. He's like, he knew how to act in a parade. I guess he'd been practicing his whole life. I'd just been in them my whole life. I didn't know there was any thinking and any, tactic to it. But so I'm just sitting there, firework goes off. I act like I'm afraid of a bullet, just the whole Born on the 4th of July thing, old man, So I act like that, and and my dad, I think it really gave my dad a lot of pride and honor or something, sitting there next to his boy in a parade. He doesn't even go to the parades, but to be in one, I guess it meant something. So I'm riding down that road with him in 1991. And all of a sudden, this guy screams out, "Airborne!" Because I'm in my uniform. I still fits. But I was in my uniform. It didn't fit so well then because I was huge. And the thing is, I turned, and there's this guy sitting there with his family. And he's like, "Airborne! Airborne!" And I said, and he came running out to the car as we're rolling by. And he says, "I was in the 82nd, And he looks at my unit crest, because you got them on your little shoulder bars here, 2 of them. He looks at my unit crest. He's, "You're in my unit." And I was like, "That's really odd." And he asked me if he could have one of them. And I thought, I can always get another one. And so I took my unit crest off my lapel, off my shoulder bar, and I gave it to him. And he's like, "Thanks." And that's all I knew of it. And we kept rolling down the road. And afterwards, I went by Mary's Sugar Bowl, and some guy brought his kid up. And said, "This has got nothing to do with them. This is just the weirdest thing in the world to me. This kid wanted my autograph." I'm like, "Okay." So there's my first autograph. That might be worth some money one day when I do something. And so that was the end. And the guy bought me a pitcher of beer, so it was a small price to pay for an autograph. You know, it was worth it. It was something I would have never asked for. And my cousin was there, and so there's that moment, this kernel of the rhythm of life. 1991. 2001, I'm back there helping my brother build his house for about 6 months or so. And I'm going to Timothy's pub the whole time. I sing karaoke. 'Cause every girl's crazy. Oh. 'Cause every girl's crazy about a sharp-dressed man. That's my ZZ Top impression. I sing karaoke. You don't have to be good to sing karaoke. If you were good, you'd be making money doing it. They made karaoke so that people could wish that they could be somebody that made money, and then they all think they're good. Nobody's really good. And in there, I met this guy, Olin, with Greg, and they came up and they asked me, and I'm 31 at the time, so that would have put them right at 21, because Olin's 10 years younger than me. Asked if I would sing in their band. I'm like, I'm not going to be here very long, and that's why I always miss a lot of strange opportunities, is because I'm always like, I'm not going to be here very long. And people are like, well, that's a waste of time. And then I end up being there 3 years. Oh, well, we could have done something. But so I met Olin there 10 years in 2001. And then I got out of there come January. I've become slight friends with him. Good, what do you call it? Good friendship, good natured acquaintance. And then I end up back in Gaylord in 2007. I moved in with Wilbur in town. And it turns out Olin is the neighbor. He owns the house next door. Here I am, 37, so that's another 6 years or something like that. And we became really good friends, and we remembered meeting each other in the bar. And pretty soon I meet his dad, and we're talking, and I don't talk about the Army too much. I find that people talk about the Army all the time. I wonder, why did you fucking get out? You know, like the guys that hated it while you were in with them, and at the same time they're going and getting a tattoo of a beret on their chest and showing it to everybody the rest of their lives. You fucking hated it. Get out. Let it go. Move on. People in militias, let it go. You don't need a bunch of friends hanging around when you're trying to protect your house. They're going to take your shit too. Oh, it's been a long. At least you don't have to worry about someone rummaging through your wallet. And so then I meet his dad, and we're talking. He was in the 307th Engineer Battalion, as I was. And I'm like, things are starting to click, but they didn't really quite, you know. And then I saw the picture that Olin had of his dad when he was in the Army, standing out in front of the 307th Engineer Battalion, right in front of my building. He was out there for a mail call with his buddies, and they're all just standing around smoking cigarettes, and it's such a cool picture. It's just such a soldier-like picture. How you'd imagine soldiers when they're not out crawling through the mud and killing people and getting shot at, just hanging out. The very reason cops in Mexico, the soldiers in Mexico, didn't make good cops when they needed their help and called them in, because the Mexican government, they said, they don't care about anything. They're not serious enough. And you got all these cops that are like, kill them all. And the soldiers are just like, this is fucking nothing. Soldiers don't make good cops. So, saw that picture and I came to realize that's the man I met in 2001. And when I met Olin, or 1991 at the parade that I gave my lapel, my unit crest to, when I met Olin in 2001, he was like about 21. That means that he was the little kid sitting there with his dad in the lawn chair. An 11-year-old. And we became really good friends through the years, just by chance and circumstance, and me running to the other end of the world, me having already seen the North Pole by mistake. And got to camp with his dad, got to know him pretty well. And I never did get a unit crest back. I wonder if he's still got it. But now here, his dad's not in the best of times. And I'm gonna be there for him. So, is that synchronicity? Is that timelines crossing? That there's no coincidence? It's a nexus. We're touching people that are like us. We're touching people that we like. And the more you push people away because you don't care to know them, the less joy you'll have in your life. This is the rhythm of life. Take these things, pay attention. You don't have to go apeshit on it. It's not like I'm losing my mind over the fact that I keep running into people I know everywhere I go. And the further I go, the more people I know. So pretty soon, we're all in touch. If you don't like it, just put on a mask and stay away from each other. Just put on a mask and stay away from each other. How's the rhythm of your life? Disjointed?